What's happening, news nerds? Back for some more news, are we, you cheeky little devils? This week in news starts now. Wait, where's all my cheese gone? According to BBC, Scandinavian Airlines has said that one of its flights had to make an unscheduled landing after a mouse scurried out of a passenger's in-flight meal. The aircraft was flying from Norway's capital Oslo to Malaga in Spain, but had to divert to Copenhagen, Denmark instead. And according to airline spokesperson Øystein Schmidt, the diversion was in line with company procedures as the furry stowaway posed a safety risk, mainly due to electrical wiring being chewed through. Not great. According to Jarl Borstad, the mouse escaped from the box of food that the woman sat next to him on the flight was opening. But apparently the situation was very calm and no one was stressed. However, he did admit that he put his socks over his trousers so that the mouse did not crawl up his legs. And although the passengers on the flight were later flown to Malaga on a different aircraft, according to Jarl, it only added a few extra hours to the journey. Alright, it's a massive safety risk on account of all the wire chewing and the plague you might get from the in-flight meals, but it could have been a whole lot worse. Could have been Hugh Edwards popping out of your chicken coma to nonce up your kid. Does any Chinese zoo actually have any pandas? According to The Independent, a Chinese zoo has admitted that the pandas in their exhibits were in fact painted dogs. According to the New York Post, visitors at the Shanwei Zoo realised that they were being had over when the so-called pandas began panting and barking. That's how I look after a night out. In one attendee's video, one of the pandas was visibly panting while resting on a rock in a fence, whilst another clip had a panda with a long tail strolling about, with one commenter saying, "That's the Temu version of a panda," after attendees publicised it on social media. The organisers admitted they'd painted 2 chow chows. Since then, quite understandably, visitors have demanded their money back for false advertising. But this isn't the first time a Chinese zoo has misled attendees with claims of housing real pandas. You may have also heard about it on this channel. But to be fair, the Taizhou Zoo did advertise them as panda dogs, and so didn't actually mislead anyone. In my view, pandas are useless anyway. They eat food with basically zero energy, need panda porn to get them in the mood, and often kill their own babies just by sitting on them. I say all hail the panda dog, and long may it reign as the new de facto panda. Squeezy does it. According to AP News, a 64-year-old woman was preparing to do her evening dishes at her home outside Bangkok when she felt a sharp pain in her thigh and looked down to see a huge python taking hold of her. The 4 to 5 metre long python then coiled itself around her torso, squeezing her down to the floor of her kitchen, essentially in a bid to eat her. The woman said, "I grabbed it by the head, but it wouldn't release me. It only tightened." Then, whilst propped up against her kitchen door, she let out cries for help. But it wasn't until a neighbour happened to be walking by, about an hour and a half later, that they heard her screams and authorities were called. Police and animal control officers then used a crowbar to hit the snake on the head until it released its grip and slithered away before it could be captured. All in all, the woman spent about 2 hours in the clutches of a python before then being freed. And although after the encounter she was treated for several bites, she appeared otherwise unharmed in videos of her talking to Thai media shortly after the incident. Bit rude of the snake, to be honest, so I'm quite glad it got a few right good bonks on the noggin. I've had a few snakes slither around me in a kitchen once, but I was not going to swap my Pokemon card collection for the touch of a woman. Looking back though, I probably should have. It's a close, but it's a no spaghetti. Please, Italy, forgive me. According to T-Online, an 81-year-old Italian man had a memorable trip to Rome with several mishaps. The octogenarian wanted to drive his Jaguar from his home in Newcastle in England to the Eternal City, which is how the Italians say Rome apparently. He then entered his destination into the navigation device and started heading south. Unfortunately for the man, and quite quickly into his journey, his sat-nav announced that he had reached his destination. And although he'd actually arrived in Rome, he'd arrived in Rome in Morsbach, Germany. And according to police, When he saw the town's sign and corresponding lettering, it confused the 81-year-old so much that he did not pull the handbrake when he got out. The Jaguar then started moving down the sloping road, and although the gentleman tried to stop the car, he was run over by his own driver's door and fell to the ground. His car then finally came to a stop at the Rome sign, but soon after, an ambulance took the injured 81-year-old to the hospital. Sounds like someone else's granddad needs a lock on the door and his keys took off him. It's stories like that make me think dying early is the best way out. Last thing I want is a story about how Grandad accidentally drank oven cleaner that he thought was Coca-Cola. Ooh, monsieur, that's a big handle. According to the Echo Live, a man who was charged with masturbating in his car as a schoolgirl walked past the window has told the district court that he was actually sanding the handle of a paint roller that was between his legs. Gardaí Shay Dempsey said that the alleged incident occurred in Middleton, County Cork on September the 29th, 2021, at around 8:20 a.m. A video recording of an interview with the girl, who was 16 years old at the time, was played to the court. During the interview, the girl said that she was walking to school when she walked past a parked car that had its engine running. The girl said she glanced at the car and saw a middle-aged, bald, white man sitting in the driver's seat. She said the man was squinting and looked like he was masturbating by moving up and down. The girl said she walked a few paces further on and looked once more and saw the man's erect penis and that his pants were pulled down about halfway between his waist and his knees. But in a statement, Mr. Stensey told the court that he was a painter by trade and that he had arrived in Middleton that morning on his way to a job and stopped for something to eat and a cigarette. The accused said he had a new paint roller that had a glossy handle and he was sanding it down because it was too slippery. He told the court that it was between his legs and that anyone looking in the window might think it was a penis. He further said, "I am convinced what the young girl saw was the paint roller. Even an adult could confuse the situation." Judge Colm Roberts, speaking about the case, said, "If this was decided on the balance of probabilities, I would have no problem convicting this man. But because of the seriousness of the charge, it must be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. On that basis, I cannot convict because the evidence does not reach the required threshold." The judge said he found the defendant's explanation novel and told the defendant's lawyer, "If your client is cleaning handles again, make sure he doesn't do it near school children." The case was then dismissed. So this guy's not a plonker pulling sex pest. He's just a harmless painter slowly sanding his handle whilst in the sightline of a school child. Mystery solved. Straight up though, I'll be using that line when I next get caught in the Wetherspoons bogs. The customer isn't always right. According to Sky News, a worker who was sacked after calling a customer a twat in an email mix-up has won more than £5,000 in an unfair dismissal claim. Melisha Jones, who was a part-time administrator at Vale Curtains and Blinds in Oxford, was dealing with a customer complaint when she accidentally forwarded the email to the customer rather than reply to a colleague. She wrote, "Hi Carl, can you change this? He's a twat, so it doesn't matter if you can't." She was sacked for gross misconduct in 2023, a week after she had sent a message to the customer instead of the company's installations manager, Carl Gibbons. Miss Jones, though, was awarded £5,484.74 after the tribunal ruled she had been unfairly dismissed. The customer had made repeated complaints about his order and had tried to get a full refund of the cost of his curtains. And shortly after she had sent this message, the customer's wife rang and asked, "Is there any reason why you called my husband a twat?" Melisha was shocked and upset when she realised the mistake and put the caller on speaker so a colleague could hear and apologised profusely. But the customer's wife wanted to speak to the manager. In a later telephone call, the manager apologised for what Miss Jones had done and said she would be reprimanded. The customer's wife, though, asked how she was going to be compensated, but was told she would not get the curtains for free. Melisha even offered to pay the customer £500 out of her own pocket as a gesture of goodwill. The tribunal heard that a probe took place, and the company decided there also had to be a disciplinary hearing. The customer had contacted the company directly and made further threats about publicising the incident, in particular by leaving a poor review on Trustpilot, and bosses decided to get rid of Melisha. A letter was later sent to the customer's wife, informing her Melisha had been dismissed, but employment judge Akua Reindorf said, "I conclude from this evidence before me that the principal reason for this decision was that the customer and his wife had made threats to publicise the claimant's email in the press, social media and/or Trustpilot. I am satisfied that if a fair procedure had been followed, there is no chance that the claimant would have been dismissed. It is clear that on the day of the incident, the manager, Mrs. Smith, thought that the claimant's mistake was regrettable, but not a disciplinary matter, and that the company had decided to sacrifice the claimant's employment for the sake of appeasing the customer and heading off bad reviews, and wholly unreasonably failed to consider other more proportionate ways of achieving the same outcome. This lady shouldn't have been sacked. She should have been given a certificate from the managing director with the words, "Thank you for saying what we were all thinking." I might have bought her a new car. Okay, see you Brad Pitt. According to The Guardian, Spanish police have arrested 5 people accused of scamming 2 women out of €325,000. This is of course by posing online as the Hollywood star Brad Pitt. The suspects made contact with the women on an internet page for the fans of the Oscar-winning actor and led them to believe that they had a sentimental relationship with him. Then posing as Pitt, the members of the gang then allegedly encouraged the women to invest in various projects that did not exist. One woman from Andalusia lost €175,000, whilst the other from the Basque Country lost €150,000. According to police, the cybercriminals, to capture their victims, had studied their social networks and made a psychological profile of them, discovering that both women were 2 vulnerable people, lacking in affection and in a state of depression. They also used instant messaging platforms to exchange messages and emails with the 2 women until they reached a point where they believed that they were chatting via WhatsApp with Brad Pitt himself, who promised them a romantic relationship and a future together. Police have arrested 5 people, including the suspected leaders of the group, and officers were able to recover €85,000 defrauded from the 2 women. Yeah, okay, arrest the fraudsters, but maybe detain the people thick enough to fall for it. They're probably at risk of swallowing their own tongue or accidentally flambeing their own cat. Who's been noshing on my shrimp? According to KBTX, WMT and Grey News, a woman was arrested late Tuesday night in Madison, Wisconsin after allegedly entering a stranger's home whilst they were away and cooking dinner for themselves. The Madison Police Department said the resident of South Livingston Street returned home at around 10:30 p.m. to find lights on, and after spotting someone inside walking around, the woman understandably called police. Police said when officers arrived, they witnessed a woman casually walking around the home. Police ordered her to come to the door. The woman then went to the door calmly and told police that she had gotten permission to be inside the home from the resident, whom she mentioned by name. Police said that the suspect was inside the home long enough to inspect the mail, gather details about the resident, and to cook herself a dinner of shrimp and pasta that did not belong to her. However, the suspect allegedly told officers that she met the resident of the home at a coffee shop earlier in the day. The suspect claimed she'd been given keys to the house. The police didn't say how she actually got into the house, but the resident insisted that she had never met the woman who was found inside, adding that the alleged burglar did not have permission to be in her home and eating her food. The suspect was arrested for alleged residential burglary, and her current address is Dane County Jail. See? This is why I always give a fake name in Starbucks. I don't want randomers using my name to impersonate me and, God forbid, access my financials. My credit score of 69 took me years to perfect. There's taking the piss, and then there's American medical companies. I've literally got to ring a taxi in 20 minutes. According to the Mirror, a paraplegic ex-jockey who was given a special skeleton suit to help him walk again can't walk anymore after the equipment stopped working. Michael Strait was left paralysed from the waist down when he suffered head and spinal injuries at Arlington Park, Chicago in 2009. 5 years later though, he was given the chance to walk again when he was fitted with a $100,000 exoskeleton paid for from funds raised by the Jockey Club's Safety Net Foundation. The foundation also paid for the insurance, which covered the cost of repairs for several years. But according to Michael, the suit has now malfunctioned and he has been unable to get the company which supplied the suit to fix it. He now only has the use of a machine which helps him stand but not move around. On his Facebook page, Mr. Strait said, "Bad news. After 371,091 steps, my exoskeleton is being retired after 10 years of unbelievable physical therapy. The reason it stopped is because of a battery in the watch I wear to operate the machine. I called thinking it was no big deal, yet I was told they stopped working on any machine that was 5 years or older. I find it very hard to believe after paying nearly $100,000 for the machine, a $20 battery for the watch is the reason I can't walk anymore. The Pollock report said the company which produces the exoskeleton, Lifewood, had not responded to requests for comment. Here's a picture of the battery. I found a better version of that battery on eBay for £5. To be fair, I could have probably fixed it. I dare say even the average American could have given it a go, unless of course you've had amorous feelings about your sister. That generally puts you in the mind power bracket of the common microwave. In that case, stick to concentrating on breathing. There's a good lad. Come on, love. A bit of in-flight entertainment? According to the Daily Mail, a couple caught red-handed trying to join the Mile High Club in front of appalled passengers, including a child, were today convicted of outraging public decency. Bradley Smith and Antonia Sullivan of Rhondda Sign-on Taff in Wales were hauled off the plane by police for indulging in their X-rated antics whilst flying home from Tenerife, Spain, aboard a packed EasyJet flight on March the 3rd. Unemployed Smith, top lad, was heard asking his girlfriend to wank me off before care worker Sullivan was seen arranging several coats over his lap. But the couple were not as discreet as they thought and were reported to flight attendants by outraged passengers who saw vigorous hand movements beneath the coats. Witnesses to their lewd actions included a mother and her teenage daughter who complained seeing Smith's bits during their exploits. But Sullivan tried to excuse the situation by explaining she was merely rubbing her boyfriend's leg. And on Thursday, the pair both pleaded guilty to 1 count of outraging public decency. And Judge Lynn Matthews said, "You had no regards for the feelings of other passengers. Who do you think you are? And what right do you think entitled you to behave in that way, in full view of people on that flight?" Smith was given a 300-hour community work order, while Sullivan received 270 hours. They were also ordered to pay £100 compensation to each of the 3 witnesses. That is an expensive hand job. Wow. Nothing says sexy like being wanked off under a load of coats with all the legroom of Harry Potter's cupboard. Was it the sweet smell of aviation fuel, or the beautiful stench of duty-free fags wafted through the cabin? I mean, I get that bit, to be fair. Mate, the toilet ain't helping, but I think you've got bigger problems. According to The Independent, a man who returned from holiday to discover a portable toilet for bus drivers placed outside his property says he now can't sell his home. Brett Kemp was surprised to find Transport for London had installed the lavatory on the roadside next to his 4-bedroom house in Purley, South London. The oven cleaning business owner said none of the nearby residents were consulted, and now they have to put up with a stink when drivers use the toilet. He also claimed that the toilet was putting off potential buyers for his home, which he last week cut in price from $650,000 to $635,000 due to lack of interest. 4-bedroomed house. Mr. Kemp told The Independent, "I put the property on the market 3 weeks ago, and I've had just 2 viewings. No one wants to see a toilet block outside a home they want to buy. People are turned off, and it means that I can't sell the property at the moment." It's quite a futuristic looking loo. Not very disabled friendly though, look at the step. Mr. Kemp, who has owned the rental property for 11 years, said he can also smell the toilet when bus drivers open the door. And despite TfL replacing the toilet block with a sturdier version featuring a door facing away from his home, he claimed it was still a problem. How is a 4-bedroomed house worth £635,000? What are the bricks made out of? Myrrh? You could buy a whole street in Preston for that. Alright, some of it may be on fire when you take ownership, but at least you won't have a shitter outside. Here are my honourable mentions. These are stories that just didn't quite make the cut, for whatever reason. An absolute legend who unfortunately died in a tractor accident donated his organs, allowing 4 other people to live. Macaulay Owen turned up at hospital with severe chest and brain injuries, which were unfortunately not compatible with life. However, this absolute legend had signed the organ donation register twice, despite not being too good with computers. As a result of his priceless donation, a mum can now play with her child again. Fair play to you, lad. It's people like you that make our country great. Sign the organ donation register, everybody. Once you're dead, you've got no use for those organs. And my final honourable mention is that a member of the Secret Service accidentally shot himself. The article says he suffered a self-inflicted, non-life-threatening injury, and that there are no other injuries due to the firearm mishap. Not much else to the story really, but it may explain how the gunman the other month was able to get clear line of sight with Donald Trump. Perhaps the screening process for the Secret Service doesn't get the Mensa members it used to. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe if you do so fancy. Also, if you think there's any news that we might have missed, please get in contact. There's an email down there in the description. Please also check out our news sources down there in the description, because don't believe what I say, check it out from the source. Get right in there, put your arm in that hole of news and just pull out a calf. See you next time for another jam-packed news you might have missed. Stay gravy!